Oh,
Oh,
started it already. Is it back?
oh dear, sorry. That was me.
No matter.
Okay, I'll just test my sharing now.
I can pause the recording, I think.
We'll move. Oh, there we go. Sorry, getting a recorded message there. Then we'll move on to Cindy, who'll talk to you about what it was like to be a student and then sort of her experiences over the last year, you know, going into sort of the real world of graphic design. And then we'll move on to Tom and Pedro, and they're here to talk to you about, because as well as sort of being lecturers for us, they're also practicing designers. Tom having a specialism in web design, so they're going to sort of speak to you about the, you know, the life of a graphic designer outside of university and in sort of professional practice. So hopefully in this hour we'll kind of cover a little bit of everything for you, and you'll get a good idea of what it's like to be a graphic designer and what graphic design is actually all about. I will do as little talking as possible because I think everyone else has got much more interesting things to show and say. So I will just move through things quite quickly, pass you on to the others to show you some lovely stuff. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have an opportunity for questions. Please feel free to ask them. So you'll be able to put them into the chat and we will sort of come to them at the end and we can go through them. Ask whatever you need to ask to find out the answers that you need to have. No silly questions. We really don't mind what you ask us. So please do feel free to sort of ask anything that you feel you need to that's going to help you with any decisions that you've got to make in terms of whether you study graphic design or not. Okay. So we'll leave a little gap at the end for that, and hopefully it won't be that awkward silence because you'll have lots of wonderful questions to ask us. All right, so moving on, I will share my screen with you and show you some lovely work. Right, okay, so I kind of have a short amount of time to tell you everything there is to know about graphic design. Now, that's kind of impossible, but I'm really aware of the fact that you're probably at that sort of stage where people don't really understand exactly what graphic design is. And quite often if someone says, what's a graphic designer? They'll say something like, it's Photoshop to you. You know, you need to learn how to use a computer. So the first thing I'm going to say to you is that that's not the case, actually. So graphic design is really broad and it covers all sorts of things. Okay, so that's the beauty of graphic design. It's really broad. You can specialize in a number of sort of subject areas, and it's not just about the computer. It's about so much more than that. I can't put everything on screen for you now, but I sort of threw some words on there just to kind of give you an idea of how broad it is and what you would expect to cover if you were to study at Middlesex with us. So just to pull out a few, there would be things like typography. Typography is really important as a graphic designer. I'm sure you all sort of understand and recognize the fact that most things these days come with words, so you need to be able to deal with the type on them. You know, web design, there's things like book design, photography, animation, illustration, professional practice, you know, how to get a job, all sorts of things. So the lovely thing at Middlesex is that we kind of give you this space to test things out, to try things out a little bit, to sort of see what graphic design is or what it can be. And then as you move through the 3 years, you'll sort of start to think, you know, this is what I'm going to sort of specialize in. This is the thing that really interests me. This is the kind of designer that I want to be. So that's what we're about, really. It's about kind of giving you space to discover who you are as a designer, and you get to cover all these sort of lovely subjects whilst you're on that journey. So I can't show you everything today, but I am just going to show you a little bit of the 3 years. So I've just pulled out a project from each of the 3 years. And with the first year project, it's a type project. So in the first year, we cover quite a lot of subjects. So we cover conceptual thinking and communicating with ideas. We cover moving image and web design. We look at photography and printmaking. We cover lots of things. One of the things we do cover is typography. So we cover the fundamentals of type, but also expressive type as well. And this is one of our projects. So first off, they start by creating their own typeface using sort of a series of shapes. They build their own typeface. So they're starting to understand the fundamentals of typography there. So this idea of what letter forms are, what about the space around it, what they're made up of, how to sort of consider them, how they sit together, all these different things. They're starting to kind of understand just by creating their own typeface. But once you have the typeface, you have to think about, well, what can I do with it? So we also look at that as well. So we start to kind of bring in other design skills. So again, like the fundamentals of design, something as simple as layout. And once you have that typeface, what can you do with it? How can you express something with it? How can you communicate a message? And we start looking at things like layout and format and hierarchy, all terms that will make sense to you once you're sort of studying graphic design. So we start to look at how you can play with the letter forms that you've created. And then, having done that, we sort of move on to another part of the project. And again, sort of just introducing slowly all these different skills you'll start to learn as a designer, and you'll start to need as a designer as you move through the 3 years. And then we'd move on to creating a poster. So now not only are we dealing with type and we're looking at layout still, obviously, but we're also introducing this idea of scale and how you can scale things up and down and how you can communicate messages in different ways. So all within the same project, you can see how you start to cover lots of different things. And again, you can sort of see how graphic design is actually quite a broad subject. It covers quite a lot of things. So as you're all aware, the world moves now. So gone are the days where graphics is just about sort of static print and maybe, you know, you might sort of consider it's a poster, but it's so much more than that. So, you know, within the same project, you've got a typeface, you've got postcards, you've got a poster, but you've also got a piece of sort of moving image, really. So it's how you can communicate with things that move, basically. So all that within one project. Okay, so that's kind of just a bit of a taster of what we look at in the first year. And then in the second year, we have a lovely project called a Visual Explorer. Now, the clue's in the title here, so it's all about exploration. And again, it's this thing that, you know, your time at university is about discovering who you are as a designer and getting to test different things out and being okay with discovering who you are and things going wrong, but it's, you know, you learn from those things that go wrong. So this is a really lovely project which allows for a space for all that. And what we do with this project is we start by just sending students off to collect photos, to gather images from within their area, so their local area. And they can gather anything that's kind of just catches their eye, that's sort of quite graphic. And this is just about being aware of things and starting to sort of learn that you can get inspiration from anywhere and everywhere, and that you should always have your eyes open, and you should just be like a sponge, just willing to sort of walk around soaking things up all the time and just having your camera on you at all times. So, you know, it's recognizing things, something as simple as a line marking on the road can be a really beautiful graphic object that you can do things with. So once you've sort of collected all that, we get the students to kind of work with them and sort of start creating outcomes with them and sort of turning them into things and sort of transforming them. So they've got these lovely sort of raw images, and then they have to create something with them. So in this case, they were asked to create a set of posters. So a series of posters that work together that reflect something. And here they are in situ. And then again, to sort of push it further, to give you another idea of sort of the territory of sort of graphic design, they create a map with it. So this student, the project that I'm showing you now, is from a student who went around Camden and collected all things sort of bike related. And here is her creating a map in the style of her posters. You can see it all works together as a set to show, you know, where she collected these from. So it's it's a form of information graphics, basically. So she's informing you of where she gathered all this information from. So here's a little close-up of it there to give you a better idea. And then once she had all this, so she had a set of posters and she had her map, it was also then about, well, what can we do with it? How can we put all these together? And we created a book that was a container for all these things that they created. So now you're kind of moving things forward again. So you're looking at things such as format and layout and how you can tell a story with all these items that you've collected, how you can use your photographs to kind of keep people really interested, to make people want to keep changing, turning the page, and how you can include your posters and everything else that you've collected in there. So it's really about sort of telling a story and going on a journey with all these things that you've collected. But you'll also notice that it's a kind of form of identity as well. It's branding, really, if you think about it, in the sense that this student has created this set of objects that all sit together and look like they belong together. you know, and you get all these lovely sort of things as well, where you get to make the book and sort of think about papers and just format. So all these lovely things are all within one project. Okay, so the final project that I'm going to show you is the third year one, and that's an FMP project. And the FMP is final major project, and that is a project where the students get to choose what they do, and they can choose anything. And that's the wonderful thing about sort of the FMP, is like, and it's so broad that students can choose anything they want to, anything that interests them, that they can build a project on. Now, this student chose to do to educate people about culture, but using food to do that. Okay, so you can see already that sort of the language that she's chosen to use, and how it's sort of beautiful, and all the imagery that this student has created. And she's built this sort of brand sort of identity. So this is sort of the, you know, the general kind of brand that she's created for it. And then she went on to sort of say that, okay, well, she's going to create a series of events. So each event is going to sort of cover a particular culture. So the one on the right is the Filipino culture. So, you know, this idea of creating an event for a particular culture, done through, you know, using food as the device to use it. So as part of that, you can see then how within graphics, again, to sort of the idea of it being such a wide-reaching subject, and the fact that you can cover so many different outcomes and elements here. So, you know, they've got posters, but you're creating this event, and so all the things that go with an event. So you not only have posters, but you'd also have the website that goes with the event to help promote the event. And all the sort of various, you know, the different variations of events posters that there would be, to give you this idea of, well, how you would sort of take this idea of a series of events, but all for different cultures. And then digital promotion, because we all know that the world of social media, we can't sort of exist without it these days. So it's about, how does graphic design sit within a digital platform as well? How does graphic design work within Instagram? How can you make sort of an identity that suits those platforms as well? So that, as a graphic designer, is also something that you will have to cover, this idea of social media. And again, you know, started to kind of really broaden out what you can do for this event. So it's idea of branding the bus, you know, or the van for the food at the event. All these different things. Now, again, this student was sort of, you know, she'd created a really beautiful project, and it covered so many different things. This is something, a series of stickers she created, and this idea of, again, if you take your phone and hover it over a QR code, more information is given to you. So that's the idea, that you get people to this event, and then they start interacting with the things that are there, and that's where they start to learn more and more about the culture that, you know, of the event that they're at. So you can see how that can then become stickers that goes onto packaging. So again, this idea that graphic design is about package design as well. So like I say, really broad. Okay. And then, you know, because the student just kept, like, you know, running with this and doing all sorts of really amazing things, she came up with this idea that she would also create these packs that people could actually order and take home, so that they could create these meals at home. So that's it from me, in terms of like a real bit of a whirlwind tour there, sorry, of what it's like to be a student at Middlesex, but just to kind of give you an idea of the sorts of things we cover. I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let Cindy take over.
Hello, I am Cindy, and I was in Middlesex last year, 2020 graduate, and after graduation, I found a job in like 2 weeks, and I started working as a junior designer with the a tech company in London. And then like in a few months, I moved on to my role at Amazon Studios. So now I work 4 days with Amazon, and the rest of the days I do my freelance work. So I'm going to show you one of my uni project right now. There we go. So this was my final major project. It's called Digital Stress. So this project was basically like a thought that came in my mind, that like a lot of people go through digital stress now. So what can we do to like not go to a stage where we need a digital detox? So like how can we improve our lifestyle in between to like not like reach there? So I created a platform called Sense, which will help you cope up with digital stress. This is the branding bit of it. Like I wanted to choose like bold colors, but then keep it a bit soft as well. And this was this is the main platform, my app. So this would this would basically send you triggers on your phone every time you're on the social media or on your email. Like if it's like getting too much, it would give you like a positive distraction. And I have an explainer video which will like explain the app a bit. So I'll just play that.
What would you say about your daily lifestyle choices? Let's talk about a term called digital stress. Digital stress is caused by spending too much time on social and digital platforms. To solve and identify your digital stress patterns, we have introduced a platform which senses and evaluates your digital stress levels. It evaluates your health data, internet usage, and digital behavior.
So that's like the gist of it. I'm not going to bore you with the full version of it. And yeah, going back to the PDF. Yeah, so these were basically the stress patterns that I created. So you've got loneliness, isolation, calmness, scrolling, anger, confusion, repetition, cautious. So these patterns were basically collected with like a series of questionnaire where I asked people like, what is that they feel like when they're like on social media. So some obviously they were like positive about it. So you've got calmness there, but mostly like negative really. So yeah, like these were the patterns that I came up with. So this is one of the book that has like how the stress started emerging and like what happened towards the end. So this was all based on like the series of like data I collected with the questionnaires and interviews. This is the book, and I have like a live version as well, which has like 100 pages. But this is like, and yeah, this is basically like how like my mood board for my visual language that I came up with first. So yeah, I just like I like these, and I thought, okay, this would be like a good option to like show stress basically, and it's like a different language as well. So, and obviously I didn't want to like copy any of it, so it took a while to like reach there. So these were some like initial patterns that I came up with to like show stress and stuff. So yeah, a lot of like testing and a lot of coding, and then yeah, this is what I came up with. And then like finally, like, I mean, this is like the outcome from like all the research and all that. So these are just like some pieces. Yeah, there you go. And I'm gonna show you my work from like my job. So these are the clients, basically my freelance clients so far. And I'll show you my work for Amazon now. Okay, so I am a freelance full-time junior digital designer at Amazon. So this is something that I'm doing for, it's gonna release in September 2021. So I did like the logo part and the like LED things, and also like some motion graphics for introducing the logo and the series basically. So this was like, I had to collaborate with a CGI person who's working on this. So like we did it like in a combination of things to like reach this. These are like some stills from the like the movie, because it's mostly animated. And this is Coming to America. It was released a few months ago on Amazon. So I was in charge of for the posters team and like creating illustrations based on like actually like watching the full movie and identifying some patterns that were repetitive, because it was like in a castle and all that. So from the like we had to like collaborate with the interior designer to like do the posters basically. So this is what we came up with. And these were displayed in like these were used for advertising mostly. and on social media as well. And this is what I'm working on currently. It's a new series called Panic, and I did the motion graphics, illustrations, 3D animations, and also doing the social media. I'll just play this, like some bits from like what I've done in like for the series. Yeah, these are just like some of the things I did, and I'll just show you quickly my freelance bits. So this is something I did for Yeo Valley last month actually. It was a 3-day commission, and they wanted to like create a real looking animation. That was my brief. That was just my brief, basically, like a logo animation. And this is, I'll just play it quickly, like the new app explainer video, which introduces collecting yokens, like tokens, basically. So I did like the animation bit and like arranging the like things, because the app is not like released yet. This is something I did for Lammer. So they are launching like new features in their app. So I did like the logo animation to introduce that, and I'll play that. So the concept behind this was like how you use like the face cream, like a white cream, how it looks. So like that's how I went on like creating patterns like this. I'll show you. And this is like last bit of Estee Lauder. So this was used for advertising digitally and like on some digital screens in USA. I'll play that. That's it. If you have any questions, you can ask me later. Thanks.
Thanks, Zinni. That's great. Okay, so now over to Tom. So Tom is a lecturer with us at Middlesex, but also has his own practice, which he's going to sort of tell you about now, but with a specialism in web. Over to you, Tom.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, as Claire has just sort of briefly introduced, I sort of have graphic design background. That's what I studied. So yeah, just thinking about like where you guys are now, like just thinking about going into a BA, and like Claire was saying, I don't think I really knew what graphic design really was when I first started. And I think it's always this thing of like developing that understanding, and also because it's so broad and you can kind of take it where you want. It's really about your interests and what your kind of creative, what inspires you, and that's how you kind of shift this idea of graphic design. And over the years, for me, that's become more focused on like digital design, and coding was something I picked up when I was at university, just teaching myself, because I wanted to make a website to put my work on, and I sort of taught myself that. And then when I graduated, then I started working freelance, and that was a skill that people needed. So I just naturally started doing more of it. And then I did an MA, and then with Pedro. And then after I graduated from that, it went back into working freelance again. So yeah, the other thing with graphic design, I think that's, you know, you know, again, sort of where you guys are at now, it's like, the good thing about graphic design is it's a creative discipline, a creative practice, but it does have like a job at the end of it, which is actually something that's really important to think about. And yeah, I kind of wanted to work. I always knew I kind of wanted to work for myself and be kind of have my own freedom of just working directly with clients and not having to go into somewhere. And that's what graphic design's enabled me to do, and it's been good. So that's my little kind of intro, and sort of one of the things that few things I think they're good about graphic design. And now I thought I'd just talk about one project in a bit of detail, and then just to show a few of the things I've been working on recently. So I'll show you like a little overview quickly. So this is actually I'm just redoing my website at the moment, but this is a kind of work in progress. So yeah, I'm a digital designer, and that means basically I make websites for people, design and build websites. So yeah, the coding is like a 50-50 thing of what I do now. I sort of spend half my time designing, half my time coding. And I work mainly for sort of cultural sector, so fashion designers, artists, architects, other designers. So for example, because I quite often work with a graphic designer who maybe will be working on a bigger project for a client, and they don't have the sort of digital knowledge. So then I'll kind of come in and help them with that specific part of the project. So yeah, these are sort of some sites that I've made. And I'll talk about the sort of one of the projects that I've been doing. It sort of started before, actually, like in 2019, but it's kind of been ongoing. It's still ongoing now. This is an art project. So yeah, a lot of what I do as well is working with artists. More recently has become actually using my sort of digital coding skills to actually help artists build artworks. So it's sort of, in a way, like taking a bit of a sideway off graphic design in the sort of traditional sense, more actually kind of collaborating with the artist to build their work. So this is an installation by some artists called Yara and Davina. And the idea behind the installation is it's an arrivals and departures board that like you would get in a station or an airport. But instead of showing destinations or places, it shows names of people who have arrivals or a birth, so announcing the birth of someone, and departures, which is announcing a death. So it's a kind of way of celebrating or commemorating either someone special to you or some, and this obviously took on a particularly new meaning because halfway through, it was due to launch the week after the first lockdown came into place. And now it's been touring around. It's been to New York. It's been all around the UK, and it's going to Switzerland later in the year. So it's become, it's taken on a new sort of life, I guess, because of the kind of current situation. So this is at Somerset House where we're launched. And so what I built was I designed the kind of look and feel for the whole project. So the kind of branding, so looking at typography, the color palette, the type of imagery, sort of art directing these press shots, and then built the website, which kind of runs these signs. So the visitor can go onto the website and submit their name through the site, and it will appear up on the boards. So it's all kind of driven by, the whole thing really is driven by this website. So yeah, then it's like the typeface, designing the typeface for this flip dots for the display, kind of working out a lot of technical stuff involved in this. So that, yeah, there's the kind of typography for the sort of logo, which is it's like a kind of revived version of the typeface that's used throughout kind of British transports. And color palette, kind of relating again back to kind of transport. And then this is like some of the sort of things that goes on behind the scenes of like digital design. It can be very kind of technical and quite geeky, and this is kind of really designing the application and working out how it's all going to work, which is a massive part of this, because obviously, you know, the artist will come with this idea, but how does that actually work in you know, the nuts and bolts of it all? And the kind of, a lot of digital designers will think about user experience and what does, so you're kind of putting yourself, you're designing experiences rather than kind of fixed pieces of design. So you're thinking about, how does someone interact with this thing? What's the first thing that happens when they go onto this website? Where do they want to go? What's their kind of, why are they on this website in the first place? And yeah, giving them all the tools and kind of functionality that they need to actually get that name up on the board. Or we had to think about moderation was a massive thing, because we didn't want people just putting swear words up or you know, kind of ruining it. So we had to kind of design those systems as well, like how do we moderate the names, so things like that. And then this is the website. So there's lots of, not just it's not just, so they have the boards which are kind of live here. Then you have kind of maps, so it shows the locations of where everyone's submitted from. There's like an archive section with stories, so people can put stories about the person that they're kind of commemorating or celebrating. There's an events calendar. You know, it's quite a broad site which kind of really shows the project and all the different areas of it. And then, yeah, some other stuff I do. This is a site for a fashion designer called Molly Goddard, who I've worked with for quite a few years now. So we kind of have done several versions of this site over the years. This is the most current version. And it's, yeah, it's an e-commerce site, but it's kind of just kind of extending their brand and making sure everything's very clean, considered, and easy to use, and shows off the products and shows off the photography, and yeah, creates a good platform. It does all the usual e-commerce stuff, so I need to go through everything. Yeah, this is an arts journal for so it's a kind of it was a print magazine, but then they kind of moved to like an online sort of version of it as well, so you can kind of it's acting like kind of more like an archive of all of their submissions. And with this, the kind of challenge here was to kind of create a kind of flexible system where they can kind of show lots of different content in different ways. And I'll try and go through a few. So yeah, you can download and you can listen to the articles, kind of like a podcast version. And they can do things like change the background color, and it's kind of sometimes as well with a lot of the kind of challenge I have really with digital design is like creating platforms for other people to use. So you're kind of giving that, you're designing tools for them really, rather than like fixed outcomes. So with this, it's like giving them this sort of templates and options for them to make lots of different types of pages. I'll try and find like one that looks very different. I'll go into the archive. I'll try and remember one that's got. So this is, yeah, so this one, like, you know, they've changed the background, the color, and they've got like lots of options for the typography, but it all kind of fits, and it still doesn't break the overall design, but they can sort of use it in different ways. And it's really nice to see how they've done that and kind of taken it to places which I didn't really intend well, not intend, but I didn't foresee, basically, which is nice. I don't know, how should I, any more, or do you want to move on?
No, that's perfect, Tom. Thanks
Okay.
very much.
All right.
I did notice we had a raise of the hands. Now, I don't think we're able to actually sort of hear the people, you know, the applicants here, but I'd just ask if you pop the question that you may have into the Q&A, and then we can answer it, because I imagine maybe it was a question for Tom. But we can come back to those questions at the end if that's all right by everyone. But thanks very much, Tom, for that. That's great. So yeah, a nice introduction, I think, there to the life of a digital designer. So moving on for our last speaker, we've got Pedro, who is another one of our lecturers, but also has his own practice as a graphic designer. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying, more of a print-based designer, I think is how I would describe you, Pedro. So over to you.
Not at all. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen first. Thing. Cool. So yeah, like Clara was saying, I'm more of a print-based designer, but I'll explain that a little bit more. So yeah, my name is Pedro Pina. I'm a graphic design lecturer at Middlesex, and I've been a lecturer at Middlesex since 2013, which sounds absolutely crazy, but it's true. And my main focus in as a lecturer is editorial design and typography. So those are my specialist areas, let's say. And here's just a couple of slides of students' work from that sort of area. But I'm also a practicing designer, like Claire said, and I run my own studio called PG Howland. And so yeah, I'm a print-based designer, and that's sort of like my specialist area. But again, like what I teach is mostly to do with editorial design and typography. So a print-based designer can cover many other areas as well. So those are my two main focus, which are also mostly the things I cover in my teaching as well. So I've split this presentation into some editorial work and some typography work to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of the kind of work that a designer like me does. I've made it a bit more of like a quick showcase, but you can ask any questions about anything at the end if you want. So yeah, I started my career in publishing. I was mostly, in my first couple of years, I was mostly a designer I was designing book jackets. This was when I was still living in Portugal. I'm Portuguese, by the way. So before I moved to the UK, and so I was mostly designing book jackets for fiction books. These are translated books that were translated into Portuguese. So these are two jackets here, two others. So this was these are mainly for one imprint. So you can see a big range of different kind of typographic approaches, mostly, I'd say, very expressive design, sort of trying to sort of focus on the content of the books and trying to enhance or bring that forward onto the cover and to kind of entice the future reader. So from that, I moved on into designing books for cultural institutions. This is still back before I moved to the UK. So designing a lot of book for exhibitions and things like that. So mostly like catalogs. So this is a book for an exhibition. So I'm just going to show you a few spreads. Yeah, so that within that sort of opportunity of starting to design for cultural institutions and things like that, I started to design also like their identity, so the poster designs and the designs of the exhibitions and the exhibitions themselves. This is an example of a poster on the street, sort of like an example of how the exhibition was laid out and designed and all of that. This was a few years ago now, just to give you a range of different things that I've worked on. So all like the layout of the exhibition, how things were set up, like the kind of tables, designing the tables, designing the everything that kind of like contains the things that are in the exhibition was sort of designed and directed by me. So another example of the same poster in a different place. So moving on from Portugal, and I moved into the UK like 10 years or 11 years ago. I started to do a lot of work for galleries, and I still do. So I'm going to show you some examples. This one was for the Whitechapel Gallery in London. So this was a book for the retrospective exhibition of Mark Dion, an American artist. This is the book that we did for them for that exhibition. Showing a few slides. So yeah, this is mostly like the kind of work that I do is print-based, is designing for books, is sort of like coming up with an overall identity for a book, the layout, how to sort of think about a narrative that the book goes through and the sequence and how to sort of organize and kind of curate and edit the visual content into the form of a book, really. A few more slides of the same. I did some work for the, I've been doing some work for the Tate Modern too. These I have a few examples here. So for example, for the Giacometti retrospective exhibition in 2018, I think, or 17, did the book for that too. So this is the cover and the back cover of that book. Detail, again, like the inside and different kinds of layout to accommodate different kinds of text and different kinds of imagery, and so different kinds of things that you sort of have to process as a designer, kind of come up with a solution that accommodates all the content that you sort of like given by the editors, let's say. So everything comes to you in a raw form and you need to give it shape and form. A few slides. Yeah, so you can see text, you can see images, you can see images that illustrate the text, other images that are the images of the exhibition, like this one. Also the book for the Agnes Martin exhibition. A few slides here of different spreads. The Malevich exhibition, which was way longer ago. The cover and the back cover too. The spreads. Yeah, so this is a very specific kind of work which I do quite a lot of, and yeah, it's to do with mostly exhibition catalogs. But I've done all sorts, and I have a few examples of things that are from a completely different area in editorial, with to do more with like fashion editorial and magazines. And so these are a couple of covers and some spreads. And a few years later, we changed the look of the magazine, so you can sort of see that it's more sort of like photography led, let's say. Yeah. And then the other part of my practice, so one side is the editorial, the mostly book design, and the other side is the typography. So I do a lot of I design a lot of typefaces, and I do a lot of like bespoke lettering. So I've split this bit into those two parts as well. So some examples of typeface design. So for example, I designed the type mark for the tourism of Ireland, for example. So I designed all of these letters and turned them later into a logo. but then part of the same branding exercise. So I was commissioned by a branding agency to design the lettering. I also designed a bespoke typeface for them, and it came in 3 ways. So the typefaces that we choose on the computer, then that we can use different styles and different that have like regular, bold, and so on. So I designed those kinds of things, but mostly I designed them for clients so that they can have their own special typefaces, so that no one else has access to, basically. So here's an example of that typeface and the three different sizes that I've or styles that I've designed for them. And this is, it might not look like it, but this is a lot of work. That's something that takes like almost like a year to design and to do, like to the point where it's usable by someone else, not just something that I know how to use. Yeah. So another example of a typeface that I've designed for a Belgian TV channel called Veer, that was used for their logo as well. So all of these letters that you're seeing on screen were designed by me, so that this company, this TV channel, could use for all of their branding, their logo, and kind of like advertise the channel and all of the moving typographic elements that they would have to have on screen. So that's sort of like the main characters of the typeface. And then it was used for promotional items as well. You see the typeface there and the logo there. And then it was used for indent and things like that, like you see every day when you're watching TV. It's also this is a little bit older, but it's kind of like in the same vein. I was commissioned to design a typography for a council, for the council of a city. So it's kind of, it was for their identity as well. So these are sort of in the same the main elements of the typeface, and then it involves all sorts of characters and numbers, and so you can see there's a big range of like typographic styles too. So it depends on the client and the needs of the client and the things that they're sort of asking you for, and they kind of that the job requires. And every job requires a kind of a different identity, a different approach, a different visual language, and that's what a lot of graphic design is about. It's not really, well, to my mind, it's not really about coming in with sort of a style and a way of visualizing things, but more of a way of thinking and finding different ways of coming up with the right language for the right client. Yeah. Some also did some stuff for like more commercial sort of typography. This was for a Nike campaign. So they were releasing a new shoe, and they wanted a typeface that was just for that specific campaign. You can see it here being used on a shoebox and being used on the sort of like window displays on Nike Town. Some outdoors as well. And then I do a lot of bespoke lettering, and the difference between those two is more to do with, like, bespoke lettering is not necessarily type that is typable, that you can actually type on your keyboard, but it's used more as an image, let's say. So a few examples of that. Well, actually, yeah. So this was done for something for a Nike promotional campaign too. So all of these letters were designed by me, specific to in response to their brief. Yeah. So you can see here, like, what I provided the client with, for example. Less glamorous work, but it pays bills. Typography, for example, for the old El Paso branding campaign. So all of these letters here were designed by, but in this case, this is lettering, but it's actually typable, this one. So as you can see here, this started as something that was done with a brush and kind of drawn first, and kind of like digitized to mimic something that's been painted with a brush. Okay, just a few examples of that. I've done also a lot of like kind of like more illustrative lettering. So this case is for Bowden. So things of this sort, which again are more expressive or more to do with a very specific brief that's more to do with illustration through type. I think this is the last one, and an example of something I did for an Audi campaign, advertising campaign, where they asked me to draw bespoke lettering, so lettering that didn't exist as a typeface for all of these different advertisements that were on TV, and and these were later rendered and animated by a 3D animator. But basically, all of these letter forms were designed by me from scratch. Were like they don't exist as a typeface. Here are some examples just to kind of show you a little bit of the behind the scenes of like how things you start by drawing it by hand, and then you scan it, and then you take it onto a software where you digitize it, and then you turn it into something that can be used digitally. A couple more examples. And that's it. That's my little showcase of mostly print and typography, typographic design. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thanks, Pedro. Okay, so that's kind of it from all of us. So hopefully that was a nice introduction to graphic design and what graphic design can be, or what you can expect if you choose graphic design as your pathway. So I'm going to sort of send it over to you guys. I've noticed there's a little question in the chat there, so I'll start with this. I think this one's directed to you, Pedro. You may potentially have answered this just towards the end there. What is the process of creating your custom typography or typefaces?
Well, there's a lot of processes, basically. It first of all depends on what the client asks you, obviously. So every client comes in with a different request, a different need. So whether they need something designed that's for screen or it's for print, it's meant to be used in small sizes or big sizes. And then the process is sort of like, for me, it mostly starts with drawing by hand. I do everything at first by hand, and then you start digitizing some things. You kind of test them on the computer. You go back to the drawing board, and you kind of like backwards and forwards. And then you spend months on a software called Glyphs, making all the characters exist and sort of be typable, and so that they're able to be used by anyone that owns the typeface, basically. I mean, it's more complex than that, but it would take me a long time to actually explain the whole.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pedro. Okay, so we've got a few minutes, 5 minutes left. I was going to say any more questions, and then someone popped one in there for me and saved me. Okay, so we've got, what would you guys recommend for a student to do to prepare for graphics at uni and look more appealing when applying? That's a really good question, actually. Okay, well, I guess I'll start. So one thing I would really sort of say to you is that we don't expect you to be graphic designers yet. So I think everyone kind of worries and panics that their portfolio has to be a graphic designer's portfolio. But we recognise at Middlesex that people, and the beauty of it as well, I think this is a real positive, is that everyone comes from different backgrounds, having studied different things. And when we interview you, we're interviewing you to have a chat with you to find out who you are and whether, we think you'd be suitable for the course. But we're just looking for those little moments in your portfolio that suggest that, that there's that thinking there. So we're not particularly always looking for those final pieces. We're just looking for little moments where we think, okay, there it is. That's the potential. That's what's going to be able to, we can work with, and sort of we'll end up producing the graphic designer after the 3 years. So I think for me, it's just being aware of the fact that we're not expecting you to be graphic designers yet, but just to show that you can communicate something, and there's that kind of thinking, that sort of ideas-based thinking there. But I don't know, maybe you guys as well can sort of help what you look for when it comes to interviews and portfolios and things.
Exciting student, excited student, excited. Someone that's willing that's showing us that they want to be in uni, that they want to learn, new things, and kind of be engaged in creative stuff. Yeah. So if we kind of see that desire in you and that willingness to learn, most of the times that ends up becoming more important than the portfolio itself, because at your age, you're likely not to have the best portfolio ever. Understand?
Yeah, I think that's a really sort of valid point there from Pedro. And again, something I sort of really emphasize, that always attend an interview if you can. I know there's always that option just to sort of send in an online portfolio to someone, but if you get offered an interview, then go to it, because it's really important that you engage with us. So it's really important, firstly, that you come along to an interview and you like us. You're going to be with us, you're going to be stuck with us for sort of 3 years. So make sure you actually like the people you're going to be going and studying with. But it's also a really good way for us just to have a really informal conversation and get to know you, and get to see exactly what Pedro has just said there, to see that there's the excitement, and and it comes across more in your personality quite often than it does in portfolios sometimes. But yeah. Tom, did you want to add anything to that?
I think you pretty much covered it there, really. No, I can't think of anything else. I mean, yeah, it's all covered.
No, that's great. Okay, so then there's another question here. I'm not fully, you might have to, it's from Usman, and I might have not fully understood this one, so just give me a shout if I've got it wrong. What are the good steps of learning graphic design? That is a tricky one to answer. I think it's just basically as simple as willingness to sort of be there and just learn and to push yourself and to fail. I think that's one really big important part of being a designer, is being okay with doing things wrong and experimenting, exploring and testing, and okay, it didn't work out, but well, now you know what doesn't work, so let's try something else. I think that's a really important part of learning how to be a designer, and just a willingness to try things, and with an open mind, I think, because quite often, you might start a degree thinking, okay, I am going to be an advertiser. And if that's sort, if you stick to that, then you might sort of miss a lot of opportunities, because quite often you'll find that if you just allow yourself to explore, you'll discover something that you didn't know existed, and maybe something that you're more suited for, or something that you're more passionate about. So an openness, I think, to learn as well.
Yeah, I think it's like that. Like, I think it's different for everyone. Like, graphic design is different for every designer. And like, I always think that I always kind of remember when I was on my BA and there was like a project, and like there was like a click, and I suddenly sort of realized what I was interested in and what made me want to do graphic design, and that, or not even maybe, yeah, just why I wanted to like make stuff and be involved in that kind of creative process. And yeah, I think there's not, like you said, there's no one way of learning graphic design, and it's all about, I think, about you finding your way of doing it and like developing your process, and you never stop learning either. Like, that's the other thing. Like, every project I do, and like Pedro was saying, depends on every project's different, every job's different, and it's not, graphic design is never not just static either. If you think like you've learnt graphic design, then you're going to be behind in 5 years time, because things change, things are constantly developing and evolving, and so you never stop learning, really.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so we have another one here. I like the start of this one. Hi there, fantastic work. So I should just stop there, shouldn't I? That's a lovely thing. Thank you very much. Okay, was wondering how do you guys, this is actually a really important question. So was wondering how you guys manage work-life balance in the design industry in the UK. I've heard horror stories on how lifeless designers can be in the industry, where you work late and basically non-stop. Okay. I'm going to let Tom and Pedro and Cindy, actually, all of you can kind of do that from the practice-based designers. look at them all answer.
I don't know. I don't think so, really. I mean, I've just been in the industry for 1 year, but it's been great, really. Like, yes, you know, you have to pull in some like late nights sometimes, but like at least with like my company, they're pretty respectful of the fact, like with like working hours and stuff, like no emails, like if it's too late or something. So it's pretty all right. And you know, like with freelance, actually you can literally just charge them by hour, so like the clients can't, you know, like bicker you all the time. So like it's fine, really. Like, and UK is great. Like, I mean, since you said the design industry in the UK, so maybe you're like not from UK, maybe. So I'm from Canada actually, and I'm coming back to UK. So it's wonderful, really. Like, yeah, I think whoever said this to you is like not saying the right thing. So it's great, really.
I think just to kind of add in there, I think that was something I always used to hear as a student as well. And I think it's one of those reputations of an industry that's kind of difficult to shake. There are going to be moments where you hit a deadline and you're going to have to, you know, work hard and long hours, but that's not all the time. And I think there are so many agencies out there now that people can't behave like that anymore. You know, unpaid placements don't exist so much anymore because there's a shift in industry, and it's not accepted anymore. It's not accepted that you should work every hour of the day for very little money. So I think maybe that is something that it's kind of one of those rumors a lot of people hear, but it's not true anymore of the sort of industry. So it's not something you should worry too much about. Okay, so what inspired you to go into areas that you're currently doing in graphic design? Yeah, because that's a lovely thing actually about what Cindy, Pedro and Tom were showing you in their practice, is that all different kinds of designers. So should we start? Cindy, what made you kind of go into the kind of design you do?
Yeah, so when I started with uni, I never knew that I'm gonna go like and be a digital designer or have any motion skills. So it was seriously like, you know, like the whole process of uni. Like I hear like people sometimes saying like, is uni even like important for this field? But that's not, like, it is important, at least in my case, because you really like get to explore all the different kinds of areas there are. And then towards the third year, I think for me, I was really able to like shape my projects according to that. And I kind of realized that I like digital side of design more. And I think, yeah, just like testing and trying out, really not like sticking to one particular thing, really like sort of made me realize that, okay, I actually prefer like motion graphics or digital design more. That was it for me, yeah.
Great, thanks. How about yourself, Tom?
Well, I think mainly, I think maybe like the area I work, the kind of clients I work for, it's kind of all in one sort of area, I guess, of like arts, kind of fashion, I guess that kind of cultural sector, which that's the kind of what I like, as just what I'm interested in. So it's nice to be able to work in an area and with people who are working in doing things that I'm interested in. And then the digital side, like the kind of coding and web side, I think that just sort of kind of developed through. I think with that, it's like I quite like the kind of problem solving sort of thing, where it's like, yeah, that's it really. It's a problem solving kind of thing. It's a kind of slightly different to maybe some of the kind of more abstract, well, not abstract, but no, yeah, I guess I think the problem solving thing and working with people, working and doing things that I find interesting, and those are the two main sort of things.
Perfect. And Pedro, how about yourself?
I think what got me to the reason why I chose graphic design before uni was record covers. I was obsessed with record covers when I was a kid, and funnily enough, I've never designed a record cover. Well, that was what led me to graphic design. Yeah,
We have to change that. We need to sort that out. Brilliant. Okay, and okay, what equipment do you need for the first week of graphic design? Okay, this is a student that sounds like they're starting graphic design in September and they're worrying that they need lots of things. I would say come ready just to learn. How cheesy is that for an answer? Sorry. At Middlesex, we're very aware of the fact our student finances, and something we're very proud of is we have a very diverse student group, and we are respectful of the fact that, you know, being a university student is an expensive thing to do. So we actually don't ask that much of you on our course. In fact, we are like really, really generous, and you'll turn up in September, end of September, and we'll tend to give you a very, very nice package of things, of all the stuff, if you look after, will get you through the 3 years with us. One thing I would say that most people suggest that they would find useful, but it's not expected, is a laptop, so that you can work at home and bring it into the studio, just, you know, the freedom of being able to sort of pick it up and move it around. However, it isn't expected. We do have computers in the studio, and we also have students who did the whole 3 years without having their own computer. So the only thing I would say, you know, for me would be, if you can, if it's something within your budget, maybe a laptop you would find useful. But other than that, just come sort of ready to learn, because actually, you know, if you're sort of at Middlesex with us and you're going to do printmaking, then we sort of supply the inks and the papers, and if we're doing bookbinding, we supply the needles and the thread and all that sort of stuff. So you'll probably find that you don't need too much. Okay, what kind of things do you recommend including in a portfolio? I would say a little bit of everything. So, you know, we quite often see all sorts of things. So there might be a bit of life drawing, there might be some photography in there might be some drawings, there might be some general sort of design work, whatever you've been working on leading up to your time at uni, pop in there. You know, anything that kind of shows who you are as a designer, anything that shows that you have that ability to kind of solve a problem, or, you know, any projects that you might have done, because a lot of you won't have done graphic design, for example. It might be an art and design background, or quite often we get people from an architecture background, for example. So in those instances, we might look for something where you've been set a project and how you've responded to that brief. So it doesn't specifically have to be a graphic design response, it can just be the response, just so that we can understand your kind of process and the way that you respond to a problem that you're given. So a little bit of everything, but most importantly, work that you're happy with, that you're proud of, and that represents you and the designer that you are at that time. So I think
if this is something that I've actually never encountered, and Tom and Claire might not agree with me, but during interviews, I tend to I would have liked many times to have seen actually students that either had with them or were quick to say what kind of work they like, what kind of design work they like. Because the same way as me, before going into uni, I knew I liked the design of record covers. I didn't know who designed them, I didn't know how to design them, or I didn't know anything about it, but I knew that I liked that sort of stuff. So that can give us a little bit of an insight of the kind of student you might be. And that's another way of being able for us to be able to say, oh, we're interested in this student. Do you see what I mean? So sometimes it's not completely just about what the work that you've done and that you show.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
just my suggestion.
I would completely agree with that, actually. So yeah, that's good. Okay, oh no, sorry, I nearly missed one there. Okay, I've received my offer letter for BA Graphic Design. Congratulations. Oh, 3rd year, congratulations. Will it be hard to cope from overseas here? Oh, I'm not sure about, I understand the last bit. If I'm understanding that question right, it's you're joining us as a 3rd year, and you're wondering how you'll sort of manage that sort of coming in to the 3rd year, maybe having not done the 1st and 2nd year with us. That's how I'm understanding it. If I've got that wrong, just pop it quickly in the chat and I'll try again. Honestly, you don't have anything to worry about. We do this a lot. We have a lot of direct entry students into the 3rd year, and we integrate you very, very quickly. So basically that means I kind of force you all to be friends. So very, very quickly you'll get to know your year group, and you won't be the new person for very long. Our students are really lovely. We have a wonderful studio environment. You're encouraged to be in, to work together, to sort of talk to each other, to show work. You'll be in seminars with people. So you'll very quickly slot in and get to know people, and you know, which is important. But in terms of coping work-wise, the only thing I would say to you is you wouldn't have been offered a third year place if we didn't think you were able to cope on the third year. So hopefully that sort of makes you feel a little bit better. Everyone is going to be different. Everyone's going to have their different strengths. You might cope better with certain projects than other people, and you might struggle a little bit more on different projects, but that's the same for everyone across the board. Doesn't matter if you're just joining us for the third year or you've been with us for the 3 years. So you've got a place on the third year because we think you are able to do our third year. We wouldn't have offered you otherwise because it wouldn't have been fair on you. Okay. But what I would always sort of say to people, and something we really do encourage, like I say, we've got really nice sort of numbers, staff student ratio. All the staff know the students really well, and we always encourage students to come and talk to us. We've got really good relationships with our students. Hopefully Cindy will sort of nod there in agreement. But the reason I say that is if there are ever any concerns and you are finding yourself struggling, then you come and you talk to us and we figure it out. Okay, so that's kind of how I would answer that one. Yeah, so yeah, hopefully that kind of answered that question there for you, but we will look after you, all right? And that goes for all students. If there's ever any concerns or any worries, then you come and you find us and we have a chat and we sort it out. Okay. I think that's the last of the questions, and I'm really aware of the fact that the session was supposed to end at 5, so I've kept you for 15 minutes and you're all probably thinking, oh, when's she going to stop talking? We're hungry. So if there's no other questions, we'll let you go, but I'll just like to say thanks very much for joining us today. I hope it was useful for you. I'll end with the fact that my email address, just in case you do want to ask any more questions or find out any more information, please do contact me if that's the case. And I'm going to have to just say it, sorry, because I have no sort of chat bar sort of an ability here. So just write it down if you can. And it is c.x.lewis@mdx.ac.uk. And you'll find that on the website anyway, but it's c for claire.x.lewis@mdx.ac.uk. So please do email me if you have any further questions. But thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye.